All right, yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, we're all set? Hey, we're all set?
Sorry. Yeah, you're all set.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Orange Board of Finance. Today's Thursday, April 29th. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. In accordance with Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7B regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be held remotely with no in-person attendance. The meeting will be broadcast live on OGAT, Channel 79, Frontier Channel 6063, and streamed on YouTube, and the links mentioned in our agenda. We'll start by, I'll introduce everyone the way they look on my screen. Jim Leahy, Michelle Losos here, our auditor, John Cifarelli, the Director of Finance, Pat Romano, Deb Satonic, Kevin Moffitt, PJ Shanley, and I'm Kevin Houlihan. John, did we receive any emails by 4 o'clock today with any questions?
None at all.
Okay, so item number 3, there's nothing. So item number 4, our audit presentation and vote to accept the audit for fiscal year 6/30/2020. Michelle, welcome again.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it's a little later than I would hoped, but nonetheless, we are here. Obviously, delays in the audit this past year due to COVID, the remote working environment, also the implementation by both the town finance department and the Board of Ed finance department of the Munis general ledger accounting software package and related intense training on that obviously spanned the last 6 months of the year, pretty much when we do our audit. So obviously we got a late start, but obviously we all work together to come to this meeting and get the financials out and reviewed with you and then filed with the state. And then probably in 6 weeks, we'll start the process all over again.
No break this year.
No, none at all. It's been a tough year, I'm sure, for all of us. Just hoping to get back to a little bit of normalcy. So finally, at least on my end, I feel like I'm finally starting to get a little bit of backlog relief, but we'll see how that goes. But on to the financial statements. You do have a draft of the audited financial statements. I'm going to take you through some highlights, as I usually do, and then obviously you can interrupt me and we can go through some items, as I go through the presentation, or if you want to wait for the end, that's fine as well. Page 1 starts the independent auditor's report. It is an unmodified, clean opinion on the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information. There's no material non-compliance with laws and regulations, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over financial reporting. Again, there is a separate management letter. Unfortunately, probably most of those comments are, again, repeats from the prior year. I think really just due to timing of everything that happened. Hopefully we'll strive to get those rectified over this next fiscal year audit season. The last part of the audit report I'll just quickly go over is the single audit. There was no federal single audit required again in the last fiscal year. As the audit threshold is $750,000, your funding was approximately $577,000. Now, obviously, this last fiscal year, probably the Board of Ed has additional funding from the feds, as the town might as well. So we do possibly anticipate a federal single audit going for the 2021 fiscal year. Obviously, when we start our
Michelle, what would that mean, Michelle?
That would just mean an additional audit requirement for compliance based on federal audit standards. Again, there's a selection of major higher risk audit grant programs. There's a calculation that we go through to test those. And then some of those programs have specific requirements that we have to test. So it's just additional testing on the federal level. So we'll see where that plays out towards the end of the year.
And typically, how much increase in workload is that?
It depends on how many programs have to be tested. If it's going to be some of
Ballpark, just a ballpark.
it could be, I don't know. We've actually propose it for it in when we do our proposal to you. And I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what it is. It might be an additional like $2,500 to $3,000.
Peace. That's all I was wanting. Grenade close on an estimate.
Yeah.
That's all. Not to be. Yeah.
$2,000
There we go.
on the town,
Going
the
once.
town, 2,000 for the town, 2,000 for the Board of Education, so $4,000.
All right. But
Sorry, all good. Sorry.
we do a state single audit. We do that every year. There is an unmodified clean opinion on compliance over the major state programs that we test, which mainly consist of the Town Aid Road Grant and this past year, the Congregate Subsidy for Silverbrook Estates. A lot of the state programs are education-based, which we're not required to test under the state single audit. Most of it's just the ECS money and special education. So going further on into the financial statements, starting on page 4 is management discussion and analysis, and that's prepared by...
Michelle, could I ask, I would like to do this, Kevin. I would like to, as she's talking, in case people are watching, they can see in other words, if I shared my screen and pulled up this, I could track along with her words with the audit itself. That's what I would like to do.
It's probably going to be difficult because I'm sure she's going to be jumping from page to page, but we could give it a shot.
Well, we're going to have to do it when we ask questions anyway, I think, but you know, that's what I'm thinking. Let's try it and see how it works. And if it doesn't, you guys say, hey, this ain't working. We've had one of those in the past. Let's do that. All right. So let me just goof my page around. Michelle, just tell me what page you're on and we'll go from there.
The one you're on right now, page 4.
Great. Thank you.
As I said, that's management discussion and analysis. It's prepared by the finance director, John. It basically gives a snapshot, summarizes the financial statements, and provides explanations of some of the major areas and things that had transpired this last fiscal year. So for any little snapshot, that's probably the best place to go. Pages 4 through 12, I believe it is 12.
Okay. This is on page on my version, and again, I don't know who my page 4 of the printed one, which is from the electronic one because you have a couple of pages in front. So this is the page you have as page 4.
No, it should be two pages before that.
You're on page 10, if you look at your counter.
Yeah, but it's page 4 if you printed it out. Excuse me, page 7, Pat, I apologize. It's page 7 if you printed it out.
Okay.
It's 3 pages in the front.
The table of contents, yes.
Of the table of contents and the letter. So you have to, I had already checked that out, that when I'm looking at a page in the PDF document printed out, or even in the PDF document, this will be page 10, even though it's page 7 if you printed it out. So there's a 3-page difference between the
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm following along in a PDF version too.
Okay, so this would be in PDF.
Page 7.
Page 7 in the printed, page 10 in the PDF for whatever reason. Okay, back to the content and Michelle.
All right, so that's basically the management discussion and analysis. And obviously, like I said, if someone wants to quickly get a snapshot of the past fiscal year, those are the pages to concentrate on. And then I'm going to take you to, how do you want me to call them? Page number 13?
Yeah, you say page number 13 and let's test it out. It should be electronic page 16. So let's test that out. Is this what you're referring to?
That is what I'm referring to.
Okay, so now we have our system. You say the page number, I'll go to +3 on
Add
it.
3. Perfect.
Good.
All right. So 13 starts the government-wide financial statements. This is basically the full accrual financial statements, which encompasses all of the activities of the town, the general fund, major funds, all of the remaining fund information for all the smaller funds, the internal service fund. What it does not include is the WPCA. That is actually in the business type activity column, the middle column there, as
Okay.
well as Silverbrook Estates are in the business type activities. What also is not included on this statement are the fiduciary funds, which are mainly the pension funds.
Okay.
This statement takes into account all pretty much capital assets over the threshold for capitalization, as well as all long-term debt, general obligation bonds, the net pension liability, the OPEB liability. So those are all reported on these financial statements. And that's the statement of activities then would be on the next page.
And that's the one that turns sideways a bit, right?
Correct. So you're 17 on the PDF.
Right. Yeah, I had already set it up to go sideways a bit.
Yep.
So maybe we'll jump it down to 100 so you can see the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah. All right. More importantly, I'll take you starting at the next page. So your PDF page 18, the balance sheet. And this basically will show you in column format the general fund, then major funds, which are determined by a percentage criteria, which were bonded capital project funds, the capital fund, and then the fourth column there are the other governmental funds in the aggregate. There are detailed supplemental for each fund in the back
Right.
further on, and we'll go through those. I'll point those out to you later. Just some highlights on the general fund. The general fund balance ended at 17.4 million, an increase of 2.2 million over the prior year. Generally, the results of favorable revenue, increase in the mill rate, the Amity refund, additional ECS money, as well as expenditure savings, changes in all areas, reduction in certain programs due to COVID, less expenses in recreation programs, school budget. So very favorable. Stands at 14.7 million, which represents approximately 20.4% of budgetary expenditures, or approximately 2 months of your budget.
And since, Michelle, we've had this year's, we've already presented John's presented where we're headed for next year. What we are looking at now, to remind the audience, is a snapshot of June 20 of last year. Is that correct?
Correct. June 30th of 2020.
Okay, because saying a word like fund balance 20%, when we have now already published last week, fund balance of 16% with a fraction behind it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify what we're looking at here versus more recent information, unaudited. This has been,
Correct.
And so if people hear that, we got to try to minimize the ships passing in the night.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Michelle, it's PJ Shanley. How are you? Good to see you.
Good.
I just want to jump in with a quick question on fund balance.
Yep.
So I know we have a strong fund balance. I think any way you want to, measure it.
Yep.
How have you seen other municipalities during COVID? Have you seen similar, from a financial standpoint, have you seen similar type activity with fund balance where expenses were a little lower than they thought and, they were able to add to their fund balances?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in some cases, depending on how the Board of Eds handles certain things, the budgets on the Board of Ed sides were pretty much, right on target. There wasn't much savings on that side. The town sides definitely have seen, at least the ones that I've been involved with, basically have seen more savings as opposed to additional expense, or at least additional significant expense due to COVID.
And are we still in that range where we're very strong, but not too strong? I mean, at what point could our fund balance actually hinder us?
Well, I think you have to watch, because technically, if you look, let me find the page.
Well, we just spent some, and then we're going to move. We may move some into capital, so I don't think we have a problem.
The bonding companies are typically looking for at least 15% now from.
Yeah, and okay, so in your notes, the Board of Finance adopted, and
What page?
it's
What
30, 35, so 38.
38 on the electronic, thank you. I'll find it. Keep going, please. All good.
Yep. So the last paragraph before E estimates. So you actually have a policy to maintain your general fund balance at 12.5% of your
Right.
current budgetary expenditures.
Right.
So I think, based on your question, I think you have to look at that policy as, in line with what the percentages are. Like, again, the percentage I'm quoting obviously is, 10 months old.
I think this is our job, right? To look at these things and see where we stand and, decide, do we need to move some money or,
Exactly.
So that 12.5, and maybe this is a question for John, to use Jim Leahy's hand grenade analogy, is that a number that we're shooting for? Is that a floor? I doubt it's a ceiling, right? So what does that number represent?
From the credit ratings that I've been in, I would say that would be a floor for us.
Okay.
And they've been pretty positive with what we did with the capital, what Jim has done with the economic development in town.
Mhm.
But you could compare us to some other towns that we're compared to in the DERG. And some of those towns have fund balances in the 20 or 30%. You'd be surprised. So
Wow.
it's where you're comfortable with, as Michelle said.
Okay.
It never
Yeah.
hurts you. When you go for the credit rating, it never hurts you to have more, believe me.
Okay. Well, I'm just talking about, from the state's eyes, but.
State size, I don't think they really have a thing other than when you get negative, like West Haven or a few other municipalities have done in the past, where they come in and take over
Right.
most of your spending and oversee most of your spending.
I'd like to follow up on
We'd like to
PJ's
avoid that.
question.
Yeah, or I think obviously they're going to look too if you have, repeated years of deficits, that
Right.
kind of thing. But if you're saying, you have a floor, if the 12.5 is your floor, that at that level, I think for the most part, Orange is healthy. You, like if John said, you've created the capital fund to put some money away for that. which I think again is a very positive thing as well, which you've done over the last few years.
They even asked me, PJ, for a 5-year plan on capital. And we give them a 5-year plan every time, nothing fancy. And they just like to see items on it and that we're replacing items or doing what we're going to do. But they never actually come back and say, okay, of these items that you planned on doing in year 2, have you done them?
You're talking, when you say they, you're talking about the state?
No, I'm talking about the bonding agency.
Really?
Okay.
I didn't know they went to that detail. Okay. That's interesting. Thanks, John.
Okay, on the same topic, since we got there, I got a comment and then I have a couple of questions, one for John and one for Michelle. First of all, a comment, that paragraph we're looking at in the middle of the screen now, this 12.5%. That was something that we did, Kevin, what, 8 years ago, maybe more?
Oh, it was more than that.
Yeah. And when we did it, we were under what we are now calling the floor. We were close under to make sure that we would be above that. Okay? That's just a comment.
I think we should maybe try and clarify that, Jim. And, so this is, I've been here 8 years now, so that was before me, but just so it's someone else picks up the stock, has no other information, they can see that's the target, that's the floor.
We could change.
No, what I was doing
the
with it,
board
PJ,
voted on it.
What I was doing, PJ, is telling you this. Imagine you're in an environment where we have at that moment in time, before your time, we had 11.7%. Let's just say that that's what was going on, because I could go back and check it out, but that's probably grenade close in terms of my memory, right? So we said we want it to be 12.5. That's why it's in there. There's nothing in the future that we could say to ourselves, you know what? I just heard from Michelle, or I just heard from John, that bonding companies like to see 15%. There's nothing that says at some future point we could change that number from 12.5 to. Okay? that's the second thing is, John, I heard you say just what I said, that bonding companies are looking for 15%. Since this is the first time that I have heard that, is bonding companies and credit ratings the same thing in your eyes when you say what people look at?
Yes.
Thank you.
But they work in conjunction with each other. The credit rating agency gives us our AAA rating,
Right.
and then the bonding companies use that to price the bonds, the interest rates on the bonds when we go to market.
Okay, and now my final question on this topic, Michelle, is from your experience, what percentage of the companies, towns around here have fund balances of 15% or higher?
That I'll have to get back to you on, because I off the top of my head, it probably runs the gamut, and then it also is going to change based on city size and all that.
Okay, I was wondering this, just off the top, not holding you to it, a lot or a little?
At 15%?
Right. Or
it might be 50%, but I think I don't want to hold myself to that.
Okay,
I'll hold you to it, Michelle.
but you'll take it as a next step.
I have a
Michelle,
question.
you'll take it as a next step to kind of check it out without doing a
Absolutely.
research. Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a question. The question is whether this has any impact on the share of federal or state monies that particularly now are being doled out. The fact that we are really healthy. Complete silence.
That's a hard question to answer, because they consider us one of the wealthier towns in the state, and they probably would whether we had a 12%, 18%, or a 5% fund balance.
Okay.
So I consider it like that. I've seen some of the funding goes, and I can't think of the word, the school systems in the state that are underperforming. I forget the word they use. They're getting extra money from the federal government for that. and you could see that in some of the reports that are, or some of the articles that have come out also. So that's why I hesitated to answer that.
Okay.
Well, we certainly know from the analysis I did in the article I wrote 2 times ago in the Orangetown News, and I can give it, I think I sent out not only the article, but the Excel file on which it's based. You can just read for yourself how much Milford's getting, for example, compared to Orange. But all the towns. I guess it's back to you, Michelle.
Okay. Where was I?
You're on page 15.
Okay. Yep.
18 electronic, I think.
Yep. So obviously, the major, impact or major focus of these statements, page 15, 16 is just the reconciliation to the full accrual statements. Next page 17 is the statement of revenue and expenditures, which basically then has the next page there is the reconciliation to the government-wide revenue and expenditures. I think obviously the major focus has been on the fund balance. We still have money in, I think, 2 or 3 bonded capital projects that are ongoing. Obviously, with the new bonding coming up, we'll be adding to that. All right, so I'm going to take you to page 19, which is your budget to actual statement summary.
This thing looks the closest to an income statement that I would be familiar with, Michelle. Am I way off by thinking that way?
Well, it is an income statement, but it does take into account encumbrances that, may or may not be come to fruition. So it's really looking at your original budget, your final budget, and those expenditures, including encumbrances.
Okay, so reading this chart, we got an original, we got a final budget, and then we have the actuals either generated or expended, and then the net difference by line item.
Correct.
So people watching at home, they can kind of visualize what's going on. And it might be hard to see, but if you see a parentheses way out to the left here, underneath the dollar sign, that means negative.
Correct, or under budget.
Under budget, yep.
Yeah. So on the revenue side, you're approximately 1.3 million over budget. Intergovernmental is in the positive due to additional ECS funds that were received that were not budgeted. The miscellaneous line over budget by $742,000 due to a higher Amity Regional School District refund. Also, licenses and fees over budget by about $344,000, mainly due to strong conveyance fees from property sales. I will make this comment. Conveyance fees and building fees across the state, or at least across a lot of the municipalities that I deal with, were astronomical this past year. That's been the trend. And we all see it in the real estate market and that kind of thing.
We also had a couple of big properties up on the Boston Post Road, I believe, sold last year too.
Again, another good year for tax collections. Investment income was slightly under budget, about $172,000 due to decreasing interest rates over the period.
Okay.
Expenditure side, under budget, $748,000, being pretty much a little bit across the board. Some cost savings and monitoring of savings in the departments, reductions due to, not holding some recreation programs, putting off some potential maintenance items. So generally across the board, nothing totally specific that really jumps out for one specific area.
Okay.
All right, if you move to the next 3 pages, those are going to be your proprietary fund statements. Basically, your statement of net position, an income statement, and then a cash flow statement. As I mentioned earlier, your business type activities.
Michelle, what page are you on now? I may have lost myself.
The one you're on.
Okay, thank you.
Your proprietary funds include the WPCA and the Congregate Elderly Housing at Silverbrook. The internal service fund is your self-funded medical insurance fund. Again, healthy fund balances, they're all showing a decrease in net position. If you turn to the next page, Jim.
Yep.
At least on the WPCA and the Congregate Elderly Housing, most of that is related to depreciation expense there right in the middle.
So we're looking at the operating loss line when you say we lost some stuff or what?
Yeah, and then there's some interest. If you go down a little bit further, there's change in net position.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah, but as you'll see there, right above where it says total operating expenses, the WPCA has 186,000 of depreciation, and Silverbrook Estates has 158,000 of depreciation.
Right.
And then on the internal service fund, that was negative this year. Claims had come in a little bit higher than the prior year, and what was contributed by the town and the Board of Ed to fund that fund. And then I'm going to take you to 23, so it would be your 26.
Right. Probably this one.
Correct. And again, this is your fiduciary funds, the pension trust fund, which are the 2 defined benefit plans, and the defined contribution plan. Details of the breakout of those are in the notes, and I'll highlight that when we get there.
Okay, good.
So starting on 25, which would be your 28, are the notes to the financial statements. I'll take you over some, there was no real changes in any GASB pronouncements or presentation or your accounting policies. So I'm going to take you to page 44, which is going to be your page 47.
Are we there?
Yep. So down towards the bottom, it starts footnote 6, long-term obligations. Again, a summary of your long-term obligations, general obligation bonds, the net pension and net OPEB liabilities, as well as compensated absences. And the pages subsequent to that go into more detail on those items. So we just had in the most current, or in 2020 fiscal year, one new general obligation refunding bond. So there's no new bond issues other than that.
Michelle, this is something that you, this is your material. This is not the board, the Finance and Administration Department's material, is it?
Well, basically all of this is your material. I only own the 3 pages of the auditor's opinion.
Since we are on this page, but I got questions throughout this document, but since we are on this page, underneath where it says debt refunding.
Yep.
I noticed that we said we issued $3,875,000 of bonds with an interest rate of 5%. I mean, I just have the feeling that I could have called some neighbors and friends and said, hey, the town of Orange, 5%, it's not going to go broke. That would be a good deal. That seems like a high interest rate.
And it actually, it should say 2 to 5%. If you look, I have to make that edit. If you
Okay,
look
thank
at
you.
the previous page,
Right.
Right. I saw the 2 for 5%. in the
2
previous
to 5,
page.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Although there was a couple of them that say 5%. For example, if you look at page 45, the previous page, and you look at like the second one from the bottom, and I'm just picking it up because I just went back there and just saw it. It also says interest at 5%. So there might be 1 or 2 edits in there. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the content. But I was surprised when I saw 5% only.
Yeah, I'll confirm all those percentages.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I definitely will make the edit on the other one. Okay. Nice pickup. And I'm going to jump ahead to footnote 9, which starts the details of the pension plans.
Page
That'll
74.
be your 53.
Say what? 53?
That'll be your page 53.
Oh, okay. I thought it was pension plans.
Yeah, so that's the start of it. Obviously, a lot of detailed information, description of the plans. Obviously, as we've talked about for many years now, the 2 defined benefit plans are closed to new participants, and everybody else since 1999 is in the defined contribution plan.
Right.
If you go to the top, go 2 more pages, the top there, as of January 1 of 2020, that details how many members are still in the plan, actives and retirees.
Roger that.
Just as a sidelight there, currently there's only 3 police and I believe 3 town employees.
Okay.
What would that be, John, on the active plan, the members?
They're retiring. The last few members that are in the defined benefit plan are retiring. We actually are having policemen. We've had the first one, and we're going to have probably 2 others retire under the defined contribution plan. One's retired already, and there may be 2 within the next 60 days. So we're starting to move them, even retirees, out of the contribution plan.
Wow.
Okay, roger that. What does that do to these numbers that we're looking at?
It'll probably force our pension numbers every year up a little bit more.
Okay, you've just told me a piece of information. 3 and 3. You told us that when we were looking at this chart. Does that mean this chart would, next time we see it, would be updated? Help me understand how the 3 and the 3 came tied to this chart.
The 3 and 3 would replace the 5 and 7.
Thank you. Right.
You never know, because this is a year behind. The 3 and 3 next year might be outdated too.
It could very well be.
Well,
Right.
my sense is it won't go up.
No, it can't go up.
No.
Can't go up.
All good.
Yep. All right. So let's see, where am I going? Page 53, your page 56. As I mentioned earlier, in the earlier financial statements, all of the pension plans, financial statements, the 3 plans are combined. On page 50, your page 56, it's broken out balance sheet and income statement by each plan. Again,
Yep.
a lot of disclosure on the pension plan. On the top of 55, year 58 starts the discussion of the net pension liability.
Michelle, since we're in the area code of these, and back on page 54. So these are the returns that we got from the net of investment expense.
Correct.
for the police and the 2.41 for the town. And this is at the end of June of 2020. So we're in the middle of the height of unemployment skyrocketing. People, people applying for unemployment went up to 30% of the workforce, and the market is still down. And that's why these numbers are so low.
Well, I don't know if that's specifically why they're so low. I think in dealing with, your investment advisors and looking what your mix is. Again, this is over the last, that whole fiscal year, of what transpired in the movement of the fund, in the movement of where your funds were.
I could jump in, Jim. You gave me a heads up when I saw you earlier, so I was able to go to this page and do a little research. So, Michelle, this is essentially July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, right?
Correct.
So you have to use a benchmark, Jim. S&P 500
Right.
was
That's exactly where I was trying to.
2,964 on July 1st.
What was it again?
2,964.
Okay, thank you.
June 30th, 2020, it was about 3,100.
Oh, okay. So that's about 2% right there.
4.59.
Okay, well, it's not, it is
went
like
up.
22.
No, it went up,
Yep.
crashed.
Right.
And if you look, 38% of this portfolio is in fixed income bonds, cash. So that's not really fair to compare it to the S&P 500. So it's
Right.
the performance isn't, bad considering the allocation.
Good. Thanks, BJ,
You're welcome.
for doing that quick research. Helpful. Michelle, you were trying to get to the next page. Let's go right there.
So the top of the next page starts the discussion of the net pension liability. Again, a point in time based on various actuarial assumptions. Again, in the back, we'll see the trending. Obviously, we now have another year added to that schedule. That will ultimately be a 10-year schedule. There were some, and John might be able to specifically talk about some of the actuarial assumptions that were changed by the pension, by the actuaries this year.
Michelle, it's PJ again. Can I jump in with a question here?
Yeah.
So, page 55, Jim's 58. Regular
Electronic.
49.52 and the 62%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dropping under 50% funded, is that a concern? Or is that about right, considering we changed the factor?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some, obviously you don't want to see it trending downward. And it kind of has been the last few years. Unfortunately, what's also built into the 2020 number, like I said, are some of these actuarial assumptions that really kind of bumped up the net pension, the total pension liability. And then with the small decrease in the net pension, or with the pension assets, the net position, it really kind of increased that net pension liability. So, it's all factors of these assumptions. But yeah, it trending down. So say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 years ago, you were at 72%.
It was much higher. Again, we're not holding you to this, but
yeah,
if you get back to us, but what's the range we want to be in to maintain our AAA rating and to maintain our good standing with the pension?
I mean, I'm sure they're not looking at the trends, extremely positively. I think they also, I'm sure when they talk to John, talk about, what are your assumptions? What has changed? Do you review your investment performance, what you're in? Do you review those actuarial assumptions? Are you making your required contribution? Those kind of things. So I think the percentage does, obviously probably make them a little more alert to it. But again, I think it also, how you explain it and there are other questions related to it, hopefully help that discussion.
Hey, John Cifarelli and Michelle. So we talked earlier about bonding agencies and credit ratings and our fund balance. They said they like to see 15%. Do those bonding agencies and credit rating companies, when they come rolling in, they clearly like to look at fund balance. Do they spend as much? Do they spend an equal amount of time, less time, or more time on how well you're funding your pension liability?
I think they look at that. I can't remember a question coming from them on that in the last couple of years, at least. The one other thing I'd say, in the 49%, I don't know if maybe for accounting wise, that number is calculated differently than the pension people, the Milliman, because I seem to remember those numbers for both pensions being in the low 70s with their last report. So I think you could ask them that next month when we have that meeting, that joint meeting. The other thing with the investment rate of return, I've been here 5 years in June, and I believe every year in September since I've been here, that's gone down 0.25% because it was way too high. I think when I came in, it was at 8%, and that was unfeasible. The returns aren't coming in at that. So I think their goal is actually to get it to 6 at some point. Whether they vote to do that in September or not, I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I was struck, and if we could go to the next page, team, I'd like to just focus on page 56, 59, electronic. Take a peek at this table if it may have passed you by. It might have passed me by the first time. Now, what you see in here is your net changes here in the pension liability. Now, what you obviously notice, if you look at some of the things there, the big numbers, the effect of the assumption changes or inputs, 3,259,000. You can see the total at the bottom is 3,537,000. So when you look at these shifts, and you see that most of the shift came from a change in an assumption, and maybe and clearly there's a reason for doing it, and probably a very good reason for doing it. But the reason that the percentage overall funded has gone down is because directly 100% almost because of that change of assumption. Which is, that's, I don't do that for a living, but I do know that that's going on here.
The other thing that's causing some of the increase in the town, as the members retire, they're not putting anything into the pension plan anymore.
Correct.
For instance, though I just told you that we're down to 6 people from whatever it was the year before. It's a little bit of money, but it does add up over the long haul. And you can see it, the contribution by members, $37,000 there. It's not very much.
Right. Well, and good news, the employer is putting in, this one here, right? It's the police plan we're looking at, but it's the same idea.
And even look, if you look at the net investment return of 436,000 on a 2% and change return, if we have a more normal year where we get 10%, that's a lot more money. Just so
Good point, PJ.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, Michelle, please.
there are the trending, if you want to go to those now, that might show you a little bit on 74, so you're 77. We're now up to 7 years of trending details of the pension liability, the fiduciary net position, and then also the investment return. So you do see the effect of, various assumption changes, how that has affected the liability over the last 7 years. The investment return over the last 7 years, the town's contribution over the last 7 years, and obviously also the payouts to the retirees, how that continues to increase.
Is there, Michelle, a corresponding page that would show the decrease in the factor, the investment return factor?
Yes.
That would be a real helpful footnote where we.
It's 78.
78.
I think that's what you're alluding to, the investment return.
No, the factor that we use.
Oh, the discount rate?
The expected rate of return? Yeah.
Isn't that on 57, Michelle?
No, I don't think we have a, I don't think we have a trend. I mean, I could get it to you, what's been used over the last 7 years, how that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because, like you said, we need to be able to tell a story. And if the story is 7 years ago, the factor that we use is 7.25, and today it's 6.25. That's a significant decrease.
Correct.
Well, PJ, here, I got something for the team. I did a little math. So if you go back to page 57, so it would be 60 electronic, I believe. Michelle, I would mention that this might be, it felt like, well, I'll do it and then I'll explain it. This part right here. Okay, you see that in the 1%? Current discount rate, it looked like they changed it to 6.25. Right?
Correct.
And now you're doing a little sensitivity analysis. What would the issue be, all right, or the town net pension liability, right? Now, I first got the math goofed up because this 16 number was very close. It was 16.6 here, and the other number was 16 something else, like 16.3, right? So what I did was say to myself, what would this police and the town, and PJ, this would probably be for you and John and Kevin and all of us, but you know these numbers better. At least did the math. Now we know that under the 6.25, the police is 49.5, right, gang? Now, if it were 7.25, using the exact same numbers as what we got, but now we didn't have a liability of 16.6, it would be 13.1. Our coverage for the police would go up to 60.1%. Okay? So, and if it went down to 5.5%, it would, the coverage would go down. I know coverage is the wrong thing, but the percentage would go down 36.5%. So I think you grenade close in your report here that we should add that table in, since we have the data right there and we're just, like on the half-yard line, getting it into the end zone. Because that's what the important thing is because of this information. So too for the town, which we are currently at the 6.25%, you could write another graphic. We're at 62%. If it was 7.25%, had we done that, it would be 69%. Had it been 5.25, it would be 53.7%. Okay? So you have the sensitivity here in terms of the numbers, but the implications for the percentage useful
Yeah, that can't be right.
You
can't, if it's 5.25, can't be higher than the 49% we have now.
It isn't.
It isn't.
You said 53%.
Okay, let me try again.
I think you said 37.
Oh, 37.
Let
Okay.
me write 30, it would be 36.5% for police. So if you read across, PJ, 5.2 police, 36.5, 6.25 police, 49.5, 7.25 police, 60.1. All good?
Yep.
And then a town line under 5.25 would be 53.7. Under current is what it says already in the document, 62. And under 7.25, it would be 69%. Those would be the two lines that would be a great add saying, okay, under these assumptions, here's your net liability position, and this would be your, whatever the proper word is. I use the word coverage.
I agree.
Math.
And do you see Michelle towns when they're in trouble play with this number and increase the factor when they should really be reducing it so they don't?
Well, yeah, I really haven't seen people, I mean, obviously you can play with it, but I haven't really seen people playing with it materially upward, even in this type of environment. I don't think the actuaries would be comfortable with it, and obviously the auditors are not going to be comfortable with it as well.
No. Yeah, good.
Well, said another way, Michelle, is 6.25 the standard now, or are we above the standard, below the standard, as you currently see the field of play of fiscal year 1920 for other towns?
I think you're in the ballpark. I don't think it's significantly higher or lower than what anybody else is using.
Good.
I mean, you're definitely not seeing 8% anymore. I mean, you haven't for a long time, So I think
Good.
between 6 and 7, I don't think many people are going below that.
When I started as a financial advisor in 2000, when we were, projecting people's retirements, legal department approved rate of return for a moderate aggressive portfolio was 10%. Now we use 6. 10%. I mean, but that's the historical performance of the S&P 500. It was in change.
Okay. Michelle, take it away.
Okay. What do you want to talk about next?
You're still walking us through. If you're done, we'll.
Well, I think, obviously we skipped around a few places, but for the most part, I think we've touched on, where the liability is. I can definitely add another line for both the police plan and the town plan on the page you're currently showing, or to show the same percentage amounts.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful.
So I can do that. That's not a problem. So you can see how it affects the percentage as well. Sometimes the percentage obviously sticks out as opposed to the number a little bit more. All right, so then we can go to the OPEB liability. I know we don't want to talk about liabilities all night, but unfortunately, there's a lot of notes. So page 62 and 65 on the PDF.
Michelle, I think Andrew has joined you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I didn't know I was late. I thought it was on.
Andrew, it happens to the best of us.
Email said 7 p.m. So unless John messed with me a little bit, then I thought
No, I think, I don't know. Hey, I'm having a bad week. I'll take the blame.
Listen, some of us almost had to go back in time with the original date.
You just started early, Andrew.
Okay.
All right.
What page again?
Okay, so 62 on the hard copy, 65 on the PDF.
Okay, here we are. Good job.
So now we're going to talk about the total OPEB liability, meaning the other post-retirement benefits, mainly medical and dental benefits for retirees and their spouses, for both the town and the Board of Ed. And again, pretty much follows the same footprint of the note of the pension plan. The only thing you will not see on the OPEB is that you don't have any funds set aside in a trust to offset the liability at this point. What that also means is that it's mandated by government accounting standards that you have to use the 20-year municipal bond rate, which went from 3.5% at the end of fiscal 2019 to 2.21% at the end of fiscal 2020. So obviously that assumption change increased the OPEB liability by about $9 million.
Right.
The assumption changed it by 7.8. It overall increased by about 9 million.
Yeah, and that data is on page 65. I'm just going to fly to it right now.
Correct.
You can see it right there. There's the changes in assumptions is 7.8. That's a 36%, 36.8% reduction, change in assumptions, right? When you go from the 3.5 to 2.21
Yeah.
shift.
Again, and at the bottom, if you scroll a little bit more, we have the same sensitivity analysis calculating that liability if we increase or decrease that discount rate by 1%, either way. Now, because we don't have any funding, the funding percentage really doesn't mean anything, or that percentage that we're going to add to the pension doesn't really mean anything to this because we don't have any assets to offset it. And at the top of the next page, we also show the sensitivity related to the healthcare cost trend rates. Again, a 1% increase and decrease, how that affects the liability calculation. So that's pretty much the basic financial statements. I will, again, if you go to page 73, year 76, we did add the third paragraph down, some discussion about the COVID-19 outbreak and how that will continue and will potentially continue to affect us globally as well as locally. We also talked about the two plans the Board of Selectmen adopted for property tax relief, which hasn't significantly affected the town. And then note 15, the subsequent event. We talk about the referendum that approved the purchase of the Racebrook Country Club property and the issuance of bonding that is ongoing now. So that takes you obviously through a lot of the highlights that I've talked about. If we have more questions or other areas we want to talk about, obviously feel free.
On page 69, which would be 72 in our, something caught my eye. PJ, this would be up your area, I think. That wherever we're in actuarial assumptions, it said it was 100% in US Treasuries as a target allocation. I didn't get the feeling that I would hear PJ recommending something like that, so I just, it surprised me.
No, that's actually talking about the state teachers' retirement OPEB plan, not yours.
Okay, then fine, it's a state issue. I have the same. It's a larger amount of money now. If it's a whole state retirement.
That's their factor that they use.
I would have thought that this meant that they're trying to put 100% of their money in U.S. Treasuries. Am I understanding that wrong? That's fine. I I'm reading what I'm reading.
No, that's from their actuarial report. That's their target allocation at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, Michelle, I thought I saw one that a knit here on page 11. So if that would be electronic 14. And again, I'm just giving you what I got. Has something to do with, the net grand list, bottom paragraph, page 11.
Okay.
The increase in that particular year, I believe, was 1.8%. It surely wasn't 18 thousandths of 1%.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll have
I
to
remember that one.
I'll have to get John on that one too.
No, I know what happens. Sometimes
He gets me all the time on that.
well, I'll tell you why, because perhaps you get files that say exactly that. It says percentage on the top of the file.
Yeah, I think that comes from Mr. Brinkese. We'll
I
blame
know it
him.
does, but I didn't want to identify the source. So we have some standard work we need to improve. And John, that meeting you and I said we'd do together to smooth out the whole process that we've talked about, inside baseball for everybody, but we'll figure this out. But I want this report to be right.
So it should be 1.8, right?
Yeah.
1.8% is the right number. Yes, thank you.
All right. We will make that edit.
In the same paragraph, I thought it was great to have a circle graph of the grand list that we could see that 63% of it comes from residential, 30 comes from commercial and industrial, and 7 from motor vehicle. I think that's a great stat. I drew a picture as soon as I read it, right? So that's a good thing. I get lost a little bit, Michelle. I'll be honest with you on these pages. I got this number from fund balance on this page, this number from fund balance on this page. They're close, but they sometimes are off by a little. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yep.
With everybody here, because they aren't off by much, and a lot of times it was the same number. Just take me a few seconds, gang, to go through my notes. We talked about the 5%. Yeah. Hey, if I didn't identify another paragraph, Michelle, page 46 of the printed version under debt refunding, it has another one of those interest rates of 5%. I think it wants to be, I think you wanted earlier to say it was 2 to 5%. Just so that.
Under the debt refunding, the first paragraph there. Yeah, I'm gonna make that edit. And I'm gonna confirm all the other ones. That other one that says 5% too.
Yeah. Okay, I shared with you that. Okay. We talked about the 37.8% reduction in the thing that led to the major increase in the OPEB sensitivity. Page 68, electronic 71. I just want to make sure I understand this. Starting with the paragraph that only has one line in it. School district employees are not required to make contributions to the plan.
Employers.
That would be us.
That means the town.
This is talking about the state teachers OPEB plan. They're required to make contributions to the state teachers retirement plan. They do not have to make contributions to the OPEB plan.
And OPEB has to do with medical and dental,
That's
whatever, when
correct.
they retire.
Retirement, yeah.
Correct.
So basically, they're getting that retirement, medical, and dental plan for free
Correct.
until they get to retirement. Or do they have to pay something when they get to retirement? Because on 67, I don't know what page we're on right now, but on 67, it said
like the
10 a
retired
month or something.
the next line after that, the retired teachers pay 1/3 of the plan costs of the monthly premium of the state plan.
Yeah, teachers don't get free medical benefits in retirement. Being married to one, that would change my retirement significantly.
Okay. I thought I read somewhere, Michelle, that something hadn't got changed since 1996. Do you remember anywhere in this document that being written?
Since 1956.
I think 1999 was the town turnover on the pension plan from the
Yeah.
deferred to the deferred contribution plan. That was 99.
Correct.
I remember that, but I thought this was something that this thing had not been changed since 1996 is what my mind is remembering, but not being, there it is there. Page 67, page 70, electronic then. The paragraph that starts any member. It says this, any member Part Pay and B with a subsidy of up to $110 per month for a retired member.
Correct. Again, that's the state OPEB plan.
The subsidy amount is set by the statute and has not been increased since July of 1996.
Correct.
And this is the state OPEB plan for
Correct.
teachers.
Correct.
So what started in July of 1996, people would pay 110 a month.
Well, actually, what that is the state actually pays a subsidy to the town if the teacher remains on the town plan. So that 110 subsidy goes from the state plan to your plan, and that has not changed. That amount has not changed since
There's not a
1990.
lot happening in life that has not changed in price since July of 1996 was what went through my head.
Well, it changes. It changes in price. It's just that the state is not going to give you any more money for it since 1996.
Okay, in my head, that's the same, you know? Okay, I think that's all I got.
So
Are we
Michelle,
gonna
there's
go through
nothing
the
else to
other
go.
documents, Michelle?
There's the other, the required communication, talking about our responsibilities under government auditing standards, any significant audit matters, any difficulties encountered, no disagreements with management. And then there's again, the management letter, which again addresses the 3 areas that we talked about last year. The IT policies and procedures, the personnel manual, and some cash management policies and procedures as well.
Up here because of Munis system and COVID and, right? John, do you see us closing out these actions by, I don't know, this time next year or whatever we got?
Two of the 3, I think will get done. The third one, I'm not so sure.
That would be number 2.
We'll probably get one information technology done and the one on the
Cash management.
cash management. The one for the
I think
personnel.
both of them have been in process, and there's something there. I think it just needs to be formalized, finalized, and approved.
That one's a procedure of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
And they took it and looked at it, and they brought up a lot of questions, and they tabled it to get back to it further. And myself and town attorney and the first selectman are going to have to deal with that.
Okay.
Anything else on this? I guess we're good. So what we need is a motion to accept the auditor's report with the changes to the bond interest and the grand list percentage.
I so move.
And by Pat, do we have a second?
A second.
How about we, in the discussion, if those 2 specific things are in the motion, I would also say we should put and other things discussed. I mean, because I think Michelle was taking notes, right? And we don't have to list them all, but I don't think we're saying there's only 2.
Yeah, there's a few little edits and things that I will look at tomorrow, but
So if we could put like, et cetera, or however you want to do it, Kevin, in terms of that motion, or Pat, you made the motion.
Yeah, I would say minor administrative changes and leave it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, no, that's good. We have a second to Pat's revised motion.
I still second.
Okay, BJ. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, unanimous. Well, thank you very much, Michelle and Andrew.
thank
So
you.
good to see you.
And,
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks,
on in
Andrew.
a few weeks.
Michelle, can you call me tomorrow?
I absolutely can.
Thank you.
Ready to start planning next year.
For sure, that too.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Well,
Now, do we have to vote and to accept this thing, or have we done that now?
We just did.
Good. I'm looking at the agenda, Kev.
All right, so item number 5, review 2021-2022 budget for any possible changes. John, did anything come up that would change anything?
I don't believe so. Everything's been quiet. Actually, everything I heard was kind of positive, and I heard people say they were going to vote for it. So I think that's what we're looking for.
It sure is. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to item number 6. Consider an act on setting the mill rate for fiscal 2021-22, subject to budget passing the referendum.
I thought that's what we did after the budget passed, Kevin, and we went across the hall and did that.
We usually do, and but I think we were gonna do it ahead of time in case we do not have a quorum that evening. Because we do have a couple members that might not be in town.
Oh, okay. So
I thought-
what we do,
I can do that.
meet a motion to say the mill rate should be 33.25, 33.25?
Is that the right number? We
Yep.
don't want to get this wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong.
Jim, why don't you bring up that sheet if you could get it out of your fixed computer if you have it?
Oh, you want me to show me what we can do here? As of Monday, we had no files, and now we have all my files back. And the individuals involved, town budget meeting, why don't I just get the presentation open? Assuming I can find it, final. OPOE, final to the team. Whoa, here's a violation. Maybe all my files didn't get over. That's funny. POF, final. There are two articles in the Orangetown News. Kevin Moffett and Kevin Houlihan, you're quoted in one of them. And then there's a second one, but they are both talking about this topic. So I assume we're talking about this right here, Kev, right? He's bottom line.
I don't
Oops.
think we listed the mill rate on that.
The next one's the mill right there, 33.25, yeah. Or however you point in, yeah. So I'd make that motion, yeah. Set the mill rate at 33.25 for fiscal year 21-22.
Pending the approval of the referendum.
And then, thank you, very strong.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a second by Pat. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, unanimous. Thank you. Item number 7, consider capital funds for road paving. Memo from Don Foyer.
Ms. Donnie, I think we've all seen this one, right?
Yeah, and I think we should, the other items we can handle, since they're not on here at our next meeting, because they wouldn't take effect until July. But this, Donnie wants to get moving in May and June before the other towns do, so we can lock in and get the ball rolling in a week or so.
By the
So,
way, a little plug to our highway department. From riding around with Donnie, seeing the roads, I mentioned that to you guys the morning of the town budget hearing. They're pretty clever down there. He does, and probably Donnie's leadership is the essence of it, and he probably learned it from someone before him. But apparently, a lot of the towns don't start doing their road stuff until they get the money July 1.
Hmm.
And what our people do is that means that if all the towns did that, the demand on the resources that support, outside resources that support that paving or milling, whatever it is, improving the roads, have a spike at that point. What he does is he starts it early. And that means that they're looking for business there. I don't know if it means cheaper prices, whatever, but certainly higher availability of outside capacity. So I think, again, to me, it's a pure example of doing more with less and how we run the town. So I just have to give a shout out to Donnie and his crew and whoever else came up with those ideas. And I wanted to share that publicly and to share it with you guys as well, right? And anybody watching.
So if we're all in agreement on this, we need a motion to take $600,000 out of the capital fund and allocate it to paving. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
Hey, Kevin Moffett, you want to do this one?
Hearing no one else, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Pat. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Second by Jim. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, unanimous. Okay, great. So John,
All right,
you
we
let him
close
know
that
we
one.
can start tomorrow.
Okay.
Item number 8, discussion and approval of minutes from the budget hearing, April 21st, 2021.
John, you're batting lead off.
Okay, I'm gonna start on the very first page, and where it says the guests, Dr. Scarpetti of the Orange BOE, Dr. Byers, Superintendent of Amity School District, and I think we should add the line many town BOE Amity employees and residents. Or maybe it sounded like this, many town employees, BOE and Amity employees and residents in attendance, put it like that. I think we should acknowledge that there were more people there than just those three.
Hey, Deb, could you read that back to us? Something in there felt a little funny to my brain, and I don't know what. Do you mind reading it back?
What was just said for guests?
Yes.
Yeah,
No, the whole line. After Dr. Byers, superintendent. Just read what you wrote down, because I just want to think about it.
Dr. Scarpetti, Superintendent of the Orange Board of Ed, Dr. Byers, Superintendent of Amity School District, town employees and employees of the Board of Ed and Amity, and town residents.
Employees of the Board of Ed?
Yeah, there
Yeah.
were some of Dr. Scarpetti's department heads there. There was Dr. I forget her last name now. There were a couple of, there was the special ed department person. There's Matt Allring that heads their IT department. I think we just should acknowledge that he had some of his people there.
Yeah, he led us in the pledge.
Right, Matt led us in the pledge. Actually, that's another edit I have.
The difference is that Dr. Scarpetti and Dr. Byers spoke and the others didn't. So if there was a way to distinguish the two different groups. In other words, I don't even see, I guess they were guests.
I mean, we don't even have here Mr. Zioli
Right.
because we didn't ask for people to sign in. I don't think we can ask for people to sign in.
Right.
That's why I made it in residents, town employees and residents. If you don't want to put that line in, I'm fine with that too. I just think it should be acknowledged that there were more people in the room than just those two.
Well, could we have a separate category saying in attendance or something like that?
How about this, Pat? I like where you're going with this.
They weren't really guests. I mean, it was a hearing. They were there to listen.
Okay.
So,
How about this, Pat?
yeah,
Let's change the word guests to speakers or
right.
presenters.
Presenters, yeah,
And then let's use the word guest. We've used it before.
that's fine.
And then use the line that Deborah just
Hmm.
to the words Dr. Byers. Put them in, but with two edits there. I heard you said town employees, employees of the Orange BOE and Amity, because they were there too. Terry was there.
Right.
And then comma, and town residents, rather than just say residents, town residents.
Okay, that works.
That's good.
How
Sounds
about
good.
that?
Do you want me to
That
add
work?
Mr. First Selectman Zioli under guests too?
Yeah,
As a matter of fact, you might say, since I think there were other selectmen there too. I mean, we're getting a little tight here, but you might say first selectman Jim Violi and other selectmen. And
Yeah.
fit that into. Thank you. John continues.
Okay, then under 1, the meeting began with the Pledge of Allegiance. I think we should acknowledge that led by Matt Allring.
I didn't know how to spell his name. That's why I didn't know.
I think I
Okay.
mispronounced it.
Ullring.
Thank you.
So that'll be a bullet all by itself, right, John?
Yeah, that same bullet there. Okay, on page 2, and Jim, you're going to have to help me with this. Item number 3, the third bullet going down, that Amity number can't be right there, 51 million.
I can figure it out. Hold on. We have the budget, we have the presentation open, so this is easy money. The total Amity budget. Okay, got it. Okay, so her,
That might be what their total budget is, but
yeah, hold on a sec, we'll find it. All right, we have the Amity budget presentation here. So we open this up, it's all good. And we just go to the numbers page. Here it is. So the answer is 51,698,207. Is that what it says?
Yep.
that's what it is.
All right.
Do we
roger
want that to say or? I found that being confusing. Should we say 1.8% increase,
2.
51 million?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
and then the very last page where
Okay.
it says capital
Okay.
expenditure, I think we need to put potential capital expenditures.
I'll be right with you, Johnny.
Because we haven't yet voted on all that. So I would call that potential at the moment.
Which one, a bullet are you on, John? I'm sorry, I was doing up here.
Just go up a little bit. Right there, capital expenditures, just put the word potential in front of that.
Okay. All right, I don't have any edits there, so I'll come back when I get done.
Okay, and I'm all set. Turn it over to you.
Okay, here's what I got, team. On page 1 near the bottom, Deb, the last bullet and the last sentence. Mr. Leahy displayed a pie graph illustrating the segments of budget spending, noting that over 62%, not 60, of the proposed budget goes toward education. On the next page, I'm having trouble. I got my picture. Let me minimize my picture so I can see what's going on here. Okay. Third bullet from the top. Reading it, the 2021-22 budget has an increase of that percent for that amount of money. Dr. Scarpetti reviewed the budget in greater detail, noting the budget decreases and the contractual obligations whose increase, take off the rest of that line, I would recommend. See, the contractual obligations is not 3.05%. In other words, it makes it feel like the contractual obligations were more than the increase of the budget.
They were.
No, they were not.
They weren't.
Contractual obligations went up 3.05%.
Yeah, the payroll.
All right, so the way to get it is the contractual obligations, and I don't know, I'll give you a V1 for words, but it feels funny a little bit to use the word whose increase as a category increased 3.05%. In other words, that component of their budget went up 3.05%. I was going to tell Vince about it before he gave the presentation. I just said I'll just let it go. I didn't want to, make an issue of it, but it was a little funny when I was listening to it.
What if you said which increased by 3.05%?
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Pat. In the one up above it, the bullet up above that is which starts with the words Dr. Scott Petty reviewed student projections. And then it goes on at the end of that sentence, at best and historically tend to be underestimated. I think it's take off the S and put a D. I think it's estimated. On the third section, under Amity, under the 1, 2, third bullet. The town of Woodbridge sentence. The town of Woodbridge carry the higher percentage increase. Percentile is not really the right word. Percentage increase. Take out percentile, put in percentage increase. That would strengthen that a lot, I think. In the next paragraph, the one that starts with Dr. Byers, over on the third line toward the right there, with the word "this." You know, I don't know. I was always taught it was a weak writing not to have a noun. So you really should say this situation results in whatever.
That's good.
And in that same paragraph, in the second last sentence, when it says can then be taught within the school district and student and transportation costs would be, I think we should put reduced. I'm not convinced it's eliminated. I haven't seen the data for that. And I think it would be better that way.
Why don't we just leave out tuition and transportation and just say costs would be reduced?
But what did she
This
say?
specifically tells you which one, I think, Pat. You know?
But did she say they would be eliminated? Because if that's what she said,
Thanks, Dave.
Hello?
I don't remember what she said in her presentation, but if she said they would be eliminated, because these are her words, not ours.
Yeah, that's true.
Then I'll look forward to that in the next budget we see.
You know? I agree. So that's why I think it would. She said we want to leave it there, and you said.
Oh,
this last
good.
year.
All right, I'm convinced by my team. Thank you. Last section, 4, first bullet, bottom of the page. I got a healthy edit here in the second line. He also added that next, it felt awkward there, so I'm taking out the next, 4 or 5 words. And I'm reading now from what I think should be said. He also added that the budget included $850,000 from the Amity surplus refund. We didn't add 850. No, we added. He also added. As a matter of fact, probably we should take the word "added" out. He also mentioned that the budget included $850K from, and then you pick it up, the Amity surplus refund. I think that's fair for what not only what I said, but what we agreed to that I was verbalizing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The last line, on the expenditure side of the town budget, the Orange Board of Finance reviewed each line item. You should put in after line item of town operations. But that was in the town operations section. I just want to make that so clear there. On the final page then, 2 or 3 more. At the top there, debt service. I think we can do better at the end of that sentence. Due to the funding of the pension, employee benefits increased, let's put the amount in, $690K. Due to increases in the funding of pension plans and insurance costs. As a matter of fact, I would say this: employee benefits increased $690,000 primarily due increased funding of pension plans and insurance costs. I would leave that rate of return decrease out. That's a detail. 2 more. After the mill rate bullet, I would offer that we should put, and I can show you the slide. I would offer there should be this bullet. So a new bullet, Deb and team. Finally, Mr. Milley, he shared the mill rates from fiscal year 10-11 to fiscal year 21-22, and the mill rate increase per year, period. The average mill rate increase over the 10-year period was 1.18% per year. I think you all remember that chart. And the last one I got, team, was in the Mitch Goldblatt bullet over on the third line, just before the word however on the right-hand side. I think the word suit doesn't need an E at the end. That would be a suite, and we can't afford one. Let's just put S-U-I-T. I think that's the way it is. That's all I got.
I just have one thing.
Where you going, Pat?
I'm going back to the mill rate bullet.
Where, go
Right
ahead.
above number 5.
Yep,
I would say the proposed mill rate rather than the mill rate.
excellent. Good at it. Like it. Wish I had caught that.
Well, next time.
No, I like it. Good teamwork.
Okay, anything else? And is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Sure.
Is there a second?
I'll second. You second, Kevin.
Hey, Kev.
Any
I tried to
further-
get you in last time, Kev. I don't know what happened.
Taking a bite of a steak. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? I didn't hear everybody, but I assume it's unanimous.
Yep.
Deb, that was a great job.
All right. Item number 9, review Orange Visiting Nurses Medicare Cost Report for June 30th, 2020.
Well, I was very briefly in this business. I got out very quickly, and as I read this, I was very happy I got out of this business.
Yeah, I guess everybody, well, here we got it, right?
Yeah.
This is, and I talked to John a little bit about this morning, so Johnny, you can jump ahead. And I pre-prepared so we could see on the screen. I hope you can see it. If you go too high, I because I can't hide columns,
Yeah.
like it's in a color or something, you can see the revenue stat, right?
Yeah.
And that's for a calendar year that was last year. Right, that's fiscal year, as you can see at the top of the page, ending June 30 of what would be 2020. So we're fast approaching the end of the year, June of 2021, and we're going to see similar kind of not so hot results. It took me a while to kind of figure out, from one page to the next, what's going on. I think I eventually got it. But I'd be asking questions, how come revenue's going down? And not only is revenue going down, but the costs are maintaining the same, it seems. At least on this chart. I mean, you can see it right there, right? We've gone down from 1511 to 1018, and yet costs have been, 15,000 over 2 million to 25,000 under 2 million. That's only gone down 40. So revenue going down, 500 or 1/3, and costs go down 40. Maybe they're all fixed costs. God bless America. I don't know, but you're trying to grapple with how come. That's where I was trying to grapple with.
Well, the number of patients went down.
Yeah, that's the second page, Pat, so let's correct.
The
Go
number
right
of
there.
patients
Go
went
right
down, the number of episodes went down, the number of visits went down. They had absolutely almost no profit on their prospective payments.
Yeah, here's what when I was looking at the top and then back to the bottom, I went back to the top. I said, okay, what's generating revenue here, gang?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't have a 40% drop or 35% drop in revenue when you go from a 150 to a 122. That doesn't compute. Then I say 258 to 233. Well, that doesn't drop. And even from 64 to 47, 48, that's not quite. And so I don't know how they generate revenue. Clearly, it must be a function of episodes. And maybe it's a function of visits performed. We know visits would be down because of COVID, I would assume. But and again, this isn't a report to explain. This is only, it seems to me, a report that gives you data. It doesn't.
Don't forget, this is only Medicare. It's not any other payer. I don't know what other payers they have, if they get Medicaid, if they get private pay.
They get a little of all that, but
Yeah.
it's most of it is Medicare or Medicaid, from what I understand.
Yeah, you're asking the question, Pat, what's on the other that we had on this page here?
Right.
Right, agreed.
You see, the agency that I ran was mostly Medicaid. It was very little Medicare.
Yeah. I mean, I brought this, maybe it's time for me to give you a little synopsis on this. I brought this to your attention because at one time they were a general fund budget category like everybody else. And they did return some money to the town in revenue in the general fund for their salaries. And over the years, they did generate profits over there. As you can see, over the last 5 years, they've lost money 3 of the last 5 years,
Yeah.
including the previous year. Though it was a small amount, it was an amount, and they lost quite a bit amount this current year that closed. And a lot of that was due to COVID. They said a lot of that, as we know, the elective surgeries didn't happen when COVID happened, and
Right.
all those people get dismissed out of the hospital. And 1 day, 2 day, they come home, they sign up for RNVNA, they work with them for a week or 2 or a month, whatever it may be, and collect their money and go on. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get nurses over there to begin with. And
Yeah.
we use some of them. At the time when they weren't busy, we used them up in the health department trying to do contact tracing. Is that what they
Yeah.
call it? Pat,
Yeah.
you're a little more knowledgeable in that.
Yeah.
So we did use them in different areas. We didn't want to lay them off, and this is kind of what happened. But they've eaten through their fund balance now. So
Mhm.
$200,000 has come out of our fund balance now to cover them, and they're running another $100,000 in deficit in the current year. So we're into them for $300,000 now, and there was a note. Hold on a second. There was a note in the financial statement that called our attention to that also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now.
Can we see what percent is related to COVID? So this fiscal year still had
I don't know how you could.
My point is, if we look at 16, 17, 18, and 19, we're all pretty close. Profit and loss. You know, having an abnormality because of COVID, 427,000 and whatever we end up this year, again, COVID related, we may be back to normal or closer to normal, in the next fiscal year after this one. And it's not as much of a priority, but I am glad you're bringing this kind of thing to our attention. I'm just wondering how much of it is COVID related, abnormalities.
Yeah, you probably know as well as I do that the prospective payment system is diagnosis related. So again, it could be that the people they're seeing are less acute than the people they would be seeing if it was a post-surgical visit. And so that they just don't get as much money per visit, per patient, because of the way they're paid. It's one of the few businesses that you provide service first and then you find out how much you're going to be paid.
What I thought maybe we'd do after this meeting is maybe decide to have Lisa Pimento, who's the director over there, and maybe their business manager come
Yeah.
to one of our meetings, and you could ask them the questions you want at the meeting. I mean, it's such a technical area too, that me trying to be a go-between between you is probably wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to do it in May, though, with everything we have scheduled in May. It would probably be
No.
better for a June meeting.
I won't be at the June meeting, so.
Oh, and you're the person we need. Well, then maybe if you want, we could schedule a special meeting, just handle that
Mhm.
some night.
Yeah, I would like to not start the meeting with someone talking. I would like someone start the meeting with someone explaining with prepared materials. What I mean by that is, and we could create an agenda, but I want to know how they generate revenue. And then I want to know, okay, just take the last 3 years, I can see the aggregate, what happened to the revenue, but I don't understand the components that drive getting to whatever that 2018 number, 19 number, 20 number is, okay? In other words, I need a primer. And then how come, what is in this cost? Now, in this particular document, and again, they go the other way in it, it goes this way. And so I'm reading it all and I'm seeing, what clearly was happening, the costs were not going down. And what's clearly happening here, I'm seeing a taxes and benefits thing that's off the charts. For example, I don't understand how taxes and benefits are at 518,000 added all up compared to salaries of 1.2. It's almost 50% of it. It's surely a higher than 40. That's way higher than I remember taxes and benefits in my world, in our world. And so you could also come prepared to explain that. And again, how to have something on paper so we see it rather than have a little bit of it doesn't have to be big, but it has to be more than let me start talking as we start the meeting. And it's more explanatory. This is a bunch of data, but there's limited information in the sense of cause and effect. You don't have like a management perspective. Here are some things to understand, 7 bullet points. All right. Here's a page on how we generate revenue. All right. Arrows, charts, whatever, conceptual. That way we can kind of get a feel for how this essentially a business of some kind, they're taking in money, they're expending money. You could call it whatever you want, but we need to understand how it's operating.
Yeah, I mean, in looking at this, it looks like and again, John, you could tell me, looks like some people are salaried and some are per diem also, or per case.
Correct. You have a director that's non-union that has a salary. You have a business manager that's union that has a salary. You have, I believe, four or 5 nurses that are salary.
Mhm.
And then just about you may have a couple of physical therapists that are salary also, speech and a couple of aides and stuff like that. But there is a lot of per diem people working over there.
Yeah.
At different rates for different things they do. And somebody's on call every night at, I don't know what it is, $60 an hour, something like that, or $60 for the night. It's a costly operation.
It's a very difficult business.
Phones have to be overseen 24 hours a day, even on nights, weekends, and holidays. It's almost like a hospital.
Right.
Oh, I understand all that, John, but we're trying to understand how come in various years it's broken even and how all of a sudden it's, it's 400,000 in the red.
Hmm.
You can start by going to page 6 here. All right, the last page. I'll just make it quick. But I'm sure your eyeballs noticed, as mine did, that the percentage increases for these 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 line items from 1 year are 18%, 17%, 17%, 7%, 13%, 5%, and 2.5%. I would want to know why. And on the line item of the top one, we have skilled nursing. And I'm not saying anything about whether it's worth. I'm just saying, how come? And if you go to skilled nursing, how come 3 years ago it was 146 and now it's on 232? I just need to understand why it's gone up 60% in 3 years.
I'm not sure, but I think again, that's
I want to
based
hear
on
them
the
explain that.
percentage. I think that's on the percentage of patients they visit, incidents, whatever they
Right.
call.
It all folds back into the initial page, which has to do with the case rate.
Yeah, I believe.
And, yeah,
But I don't. But Pat, here's my
you don't
point.
want me explaining it. Right?
I don't want
agree.
someone to give me data, have me spend 2.5 hours trying to figure it out when they come in. I want to know, how do you generate revenue? How do you operate? What are your problems and things that you have? What kind of corrective actions can you foresee that might help with the situation? We're all working at the same team, but I don't spend my time trying to figure it out. Just here's a bunch of data. So when they come in, let's have a prep work, a mini presentation, maybe a discussion in whatever forum we need to, but we need to have that discussion. I think that's our responsibility.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I think maybe we need to frame the questions for them.
We'll set the agenda and say, have them come in with, how do you generate revenue? And don't come in starting talking. Come in with some slides or a prepared something. All right.
John, when you said 200 and 100 have come out of fund balance already, is that in our 16.77%, or is now we're reducing it more?
We're reducing it more. Well, actually, the number in the audit was right. So actually, we probably need to reduce it by another 100,000.
It's on page 88, team. The OVNA balance sheet, revenues, expenditures, and the fact that the 443,000, if that's the right number, that's what I'm reading out of this Michelle's report, leaves a negative balance of 197. I think that brings us, John, to the two other files. One is the OVNA revenue file that people have had. I'm ready to open that for you and then compare it to the OVNA expenses, I assume. And that's our current year, right, John?
Correct.
Let's take a peek at where we're at. Go ahead, John.
Okay, so you can see there, we're into October. Now I just printed these the other day, so there may be some receivables not on, let's say, but they've collected 800,000 in revenue through 10 months, let's say. Right there, 797, 595. Okay, and let's go to the expense. And if you go to the expense,
I'll go to the bottom line here.
Yeah.
905.
And they spent 905. So I said they've collected 800 in revenue. They have expenses of 905. So we're about $100,000, $105,000 in the red for this year. At
And
this
it could go
period
up
of
another
time.
100.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
This could be.
Yeah, we got to get our arms around this one.
This could be very bad, especially starting into next year too, because it can't be a continual several $100,000 subsidy miss.
Well, let's understand it better as a board.
Yeah.
Maybe there's ways we can assist here, right? I mean, we figured out a way for a group last year. Maybe we could figure out a way for another group this year. I don't know.
Now, do they get any grant money?
They have certain other funds that are used for specific things that are by law. I guess they have to use for specific things. Somebody comes in and doesn't have insurance, They have a fund for that a resident left, and
Uh-huh.
they have a little other money somewhere here and there. I don't think they get any grant money per se.
Yeah, I know in New York State, the state had a bad debt and charity fund that reimbursed healthcare facilities.
Yeah, they have some bad debts, but there aren't any reimbursements. We really, as a town, our IT department can't even really touch their computers over there because of the HIPAA laws.
Uh-huh.
They have outside people that handle their computers. I mean, Paul or Josh will go over once in a while. If they're having a problem with Excel, they'll let them touch it and stuff. But other than that, they can't even do that.
Yeah. And the agency that I ran got a very generous grant from the United Way, but I don't think that they would because it was a somewhat differently organized, and the larger part of it was mental health rather than home health.
I guess one of the problems they had also is, I guess the federal government or CMS, is it CMS?
CMS,
They changed their system for them to collect revenue.
right.
And they changed it in March of last year, right at the time COVID was hitting. And they said that threw everybody for a while too. I guess different codes changed and all that.
Yeah.
John, there's a 250,000. Oh, that has already been spent.
That's now it hasn't been spent. That's the money that we have forecast into our revenue from them. That's to cover their salaries and benefits and all that.
Okay, so let's go back to the revenue. Let's take a little peek here. So we're at 797, and this baby's at 45%, and that's CMS direct deposit. Okay, and that's the major. All right, 55%. Listen, the approach, this is like I'm walking down, come in, work with this team, Sikorsky, right? Or any other business I've worked in the last 40 years. Just come in, just be clear about what, we'll set an agenda. How do you generate revenue? I think that probably that they would look on this year. If I hear Kevin, right, okay, you got 100 down and maybe 100 more. So that's down 200. Well, that's halfway back from last year. So they may have already instituted some corrective actions.
Oh, I actually didn't speak to that. I had Lisa in, and I talked to her about that, and I talked to her how concerned I was, and I was bringing it to the board, and some of the board of selectmen already know about it, if not all. And they have set up. They have a commission that oversees her, just like most boards in town have. And they made a subcommittee from the commission to work on ways that they could cut costs and generate more revenue. But I think they just started working on it. So I don't think they have an actual plan yet in place. But maybe by the time we meet with them, they could have that.
Okay, but here's what I would recommend. I would recommend we could have 2 meetings with them. I'd like to quickly understand how their, I'll call it a business, how their organization functions on the revenue side and expense side. So we, in our responsibility, have an understanding of it. Now, if they need more time for their, full-blown corrective action plan, got it. But I don't want to wait until we have got it nailed down in order to come visit us,
No, I didn't mean for that.
Okay, well, I'm reinforcing it from my
Could you give me, so I could communicate clearly with her, exactly what you would want from her? You said it here a few times. If you could just write that down to me, so then I could get it to her and say, this is what the board would like.
Well, let's do a V1 right now. All right. How is revenue generated? How are costs incurred? And you might as well refer back to the 6 pages we already had. You know?
Okay.
All right. Here's the raw material that the Board of Finance has had. They've seen. They've seen these 6 pages. They can see this revenue stream. They can see these expenses. That's what their eyes can see. Okay. So how is revenue generated? And what I would focus on that is page, I think it's 1 over here, or this one. Tie it to this.
Okay.
Tie it to that and page 2, which I quickly got onto. Pat jumped the gun and beat me to it, and it's good to hear a teammate doing that. In other words, how do you survive? In other words, how do you get funding, right? Is it by patients? Is it by, I'm sure it's a mix, and I'm sure it has something to do with, how many of these operate, all that stuff. Let's just see it on paper, and it doesn't have to, give it a version 1. We're not looking for the doctoral thesis here. We're just looking for bullet points and conceptually so we can get an idea of how revenue gets into this operation. That's all. And then, and then you can come back to this chart and say, oh, you see that thing? That kind of drove, how come we're down 400,000 or whatever, all right? Yeah. And then, oh, you see our expenses we have? Yeah, this chart here. Now, it took me a while, but basically this chart here has data on it that's on the first 2 charts. Took me about 45 minutes to figure it out. But then we have these, right? I clearly want to know more about taxes and benefits because I just don't understand how come it's 518,000 on when the salaries are only 1271. It feels high. I'm sure there's good and just reasons. I just am not conversant why. I don't understand the business. I'm going to ask questions until I understand the business. Why is it 160 over 352 on taxes and benefits? I'm sure there's a good reason. Educate me on that. Right? It's an educational process. That's all we're doing here. So you can use these things, but you can't come in, look at these things and start talking. I would like to have some prepared materials, a couple of PowerPoint slides. You want to make a Word document, whatever. If you do some numbers, give us the Excel file. Don't give us a PDF, right? Because we might want to manipulate it and, that kind of thing. So how revenue is generated would certainly be, and you want to say, some kind of overview of what you do, right? That would be one thing. Overview of the organization and its services. Let's just say that's the first item. I'm just creating the agenda now. All right. How is revenue generated? Cost structure, right? Let's review your cost structure. All right. And you could use pages either 4 or 5. And I don't understand, by the way, I noticed that this one says cost report, right? Trial balance of expenses. And then I see step down in cost per unit calculation. Well, I understand that must be important, right? And then if I understood this, they both add up to 1.975, right? Because there it is right on that page. And there it is over on the right-hand side of this page. So I know it's the same data. It's just cut different ways. But I don't understand what it means for that organization or for Lisa running the organization. So tell me more about your cost structure and you can review it back to these pages. All right. I
think a key question, 2 key questions is the basis for reimbursement, because again, I need to understand this better. What does Medicare base their per case reimbursement rate on? Again, simply not a college level course in Medicare reimbursement. And also one of the things that I would like to see is what's changed over the years, in terms of demographics and case mix.
Pat, what I would say, if I'm writing notes like on a whiteboard, for some reason, I think that those 2 are very good ads. And I think you could put them in under how revenue is generated. In other words, conceptual how revenue is generated.
That's exactly it.
Revenue, Medicare's reimbursement rate and how things have changed over the years. I think that would fit right in as an A, B underneath that particular agenda topic.
The thing you have to understand is this is not a business that says it costs me $8 to make a widget, so I'm going to charge you 10. It's a business where the person that you purchase the services from says, I'm going to give you $10. If it costs you 45, that's too bad. So that
leads us back to these first two pages.
right,
What has in the revenue side, which
right.
could be Medicare reimbursement rates for various types of procedures. It could be, but what has changed?
Right.
And what have what actions have you taken? Clear. I'd like to know what corrective actions there. You can call it whatever you want, corrective.
Right.
Improvements. God bless. Here's what we've done. All right. And then we know that they have now this special committee to address it, and and that's fine. And then any help that the Board of Finance could provide.
As an example, and again, I'll use counseling rather than home health care. If you get reimbursed $15 for every 15 minutes of individual counseling services, and you get reimbursed $7.50 for every 15 minutes of group where you can have 20 people in the group, you're better off doing group services. And that's, so, and I know that translates back into what they're doing too. There may be efficiencies that they can build into their costs. So I think that's a question too.
Right. I tell you what, I will throw together by let's just say by noon tomorrow, I will throw together a draft agenda. I'll send it out to the Orange Board of Finance, and I will send it to you, John. And then what I'm offering is this: we're not looking for perfection here, but I'm going to send it out. Get the feedback when you see the email. Try to get to it right, so that by next day after that, by end of day tomorrow. Let's just do it by end of day tomorrow. So I'll do it by 8:00 tomorrow, and you guys will have all day. Just get any edits. It shouldn't be big. I think what I got here is but you get your fingers on it, and then we send it. Then we get it to John to get it to OVNA, and then let's set up a meeting time.
Good.
How about that?
Good.
Kevin, you good?
Good for me.
All right, good. All right, so by 8:00 tomorrow to John, to the team. Got it.
Okay, we'll move on to old business. The detailed cost of tropical storm Isaias.
You're getting better.
I don't even want to attempt to try. I see we do have a couple new items on here, right, John?
We do.
Some more.
Yes, I think we added a couple.
Yeah, up at the top there, the same thing though, A&M Wood.
Yeah, I think they're still chopping down there too. And they may be chopping until Christmas.
God bless. I can open that file up if you guys want. Let me just go.
Do we submit anything for reimbursement yet, or do we wait?
We had Bob Britton's handling it, and he had his second meeting, and it seems to be moving along. Hopefully, when the time comes for them to cut a check, they'll see how quick they move on that. But we're getting them some information already. They made us on there was actually even not on my report, but the Board of Ed sent in a claim they had a fire alarm that I don't want to use the word burned out, but I guess when the electricity came on, they had a problem with it and they had to have it fixed. And they made us send it to our insurance company to see if we could get a claim and get it paid that way. Same thing with the truck tires. Well, they denied the fire alarm claim right away, and I haven't heard on the truck tires yet, but I expect them to deny that too. That was just a formality from the person handling the claim for FEMA. We also had to give her copies of our insurance policies and our union contracts.
So which journal number, third column from the left, John, did you say got deep sixed?
No, nothing got deep sixed yet. They just made
Okay.
us file with the insurance company to see if we could get reimbursement on one of the items there
Okay.
on that list.
Well, that's a pretty modest pushback, I thought.
Yeah. Well, we're also going to get. We're looking at the forms. We're gonna get money. It looks like even for our gasoline and diesel expenditure for the time. So we'll see what we get. I'm hopeful.
John, you're
So that would
becoming
be
more
in addition to
optimistic
this
on this
number.
topic.
I'm hopeful. Mr. Britton seems to be doing a good job, and he seems to have gotten a pretty good rapport with the person, and he's got everybody working together on it. So
All good.
Okay, so we just wait for the next meeting to see what happens there. All right. Item 2, set up meeting with the pension board to discuss the pension plan. That's our joint meeting on, it's set. John, is that all, that's all set up already, right? Or no?
right. I confirmed with all of them. Monday I'll send out another email to McMillan and the other guy, and just a reminder. I think that's probably going to be in person, though. We're probably going to have to meet here. I think by then all the regulations on meetings are going to be lifted.
God, could you get us all the material in advance of that meeting, please?
I did ask him for that. I'll
Okay.
remind him of that.
Thank you.
It's a requirement.
Yeah, now would we, will we hold that meeting at the basement of town hall, or since there's more attendees, would we use like the cafeteria at High Plains or something?
You want to go to, I could move it. If the cafeteria is available, I'll be happy to move it to it for you.
I mean, what are everybody's thoughts?
I think
Board
that's
of
a good
Edu-
idea.
It's a good idea, Kev. Board of Ed, usually they third Monday.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
couldn't do it. We would conflict with their meeting.
Yeah, they meet when we do.
Or maybe we could pick another night.
Well,
I don't
we
want to.
scheduled
I don't
this.
want to move it now because I got it confirmed with.
Well, let's see if we could use the cafeteria.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll check on that tomorrow.
Plus, if it's, May, it could be an 85-degree night, and we could at least open the windows in there instead of melting downstairs at town hall.
John, we're going to need to get the Chris as well, who's on the OGAT. We would need to, have AV capability wherever we meet.
Oh yeah, we have to be on OGAT no matter what. Our problem's going to be.
Two types of AV. One is we're all looking at the same material visually in the room. That's one AV. Two AV is we're capturing that process. They're different, right?
I'm not sure I know what you mean by capturing the process.
OGAT record.
When we meet downstairs or we meet at Marielle upstairs,
Yeah.
they're all
Oh,
look
you mean on the screen?
correct.
And we'll have a screen set up. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. And for those who might be traveling to Los Angeles in the next couple of weeks, wanting to see an outdoor in a football stadium track meet, please understand that no spectators are allowed. That's the West Coast. As opposed to Jacksonville, where they had 15,000 people at an indoor wrestling match, I believe it was last weekend. So,
Government Mules playing tomorrow night at the tennis center. They have outdoor concerts in New Haven.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good, and I believe it's still people's choice if they want to attend events in life these days, right?
Yes. Is it people's choice to adjourn this meeting anytime soon?
Influence your
Well, well
chairman
said.
there, boss.
If we're all set with the 17th, John, just let us know if we can't get the cafeteria. That would be preferable. If not, we'll be downstairs.
Yeah, I'll actually need to get 2 rooms because after we're done with the pension board, they're going to go meet for their meeting too. So
Oh, the pension board's gonna have a separate meeting?
yes, because their regular meeting was scheduled for that week, so they thought they'd honor your request and do their meeting all on the same night.
Makes sense.
So I may have to jump back and forth between the 2 of them.
What time are we starting that meeting on the 17th, John?
I thought we'd go back to 7 o'clock, our normal time.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Shanley?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? I know there's none, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you all. Have a good
Okay.
night, everyone.
Good
Hey,
night.
Kevin Moffett, I'm going to call you.